Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dale Kirby Smart, the Georgia Bulldogs, rolling through fall camp. A fall camp period that I think for a lot of Georgia fans that follow this program closely is really exciting. We know we have a lot of talent on this football team. There's not a ton of known commodities, but there's a ton of talent. And you're kind of following fall camp to figure out who are the really talented football players that emerge as difference makers for this football team in 2025. Now, the thing that I will note right off the bat, this seems to be a really balanced team. Like you kind of keep track of the fall camp notes and say offense is stringing together some good days, then the defense strings together a couple of good days. We do this for a lot of different teams across the country. That is not the case for a lot of teams rolling into 2025. I think there's some quiet confidence on both sides of the football in a way that a lot of programs can't say. Now, we got some surprise names that we got to talk about in terms of standing out during the scrimmage yesterday. Fired up to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, the Georgia fans appreciate you guys. Dude, it's been a very busy last couple of months talking this program. Dominated the recruiting trail in the summer, but still more importantly, fall camp. Like this fall camp has felt a little bit different. There's a lot more storylines. There's a lot more we're trying to learn about this football team. I've had a blast talking some Georgia football. The amount of support has been amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, without further ado, again, you look at the question marks that we had about Georgia going into 2025. Can we run the football better than we did in 2024? Do we have difference makers on the outside in a way we didn't have in 2024? I would argue that we kind of feel good about both of those things going into the 2025 year. Like to me, what continues to be the biggest question or the biggest storyline to monitor is who are going to be and I mean dogs on the defensive line. I don't mean just good. I mean great. I think we have one guy in Christian Miller, but I think there's a whole lot of question marks with the rest of these guys. Jordan Hall continues to be the name, and it feels a little bit different than the way we talked about Jordan Hall 12 months ago. You look at Jordan Hall's first 24 months with this program, it's fits and starts. There's been flashes of how dominant this kid can be, and then he gets banged up and doesn't play for a couple of weeks. This year, it is consistent that Jordan Hall is a presence in the middle of the defensive line. If you were to ask me, hey, who's one of the most important players to this football team in 2025, I'd probably point to Jordan Hall because I think you have the ability to have a first-team All-SEC defensive lineman. Can he take that step and become that football player? Really, to me, seems like a massive storyline for Georgia becoming a national championship caliber team in the 2025 year.
See, he really didn't make it in year 2. That was like one
No.
thing you saw. Like even as a freshman, you saw like the raw power. That's always what stands out to me when he's like playing his best. When he gets his hands on guys, it just feels a little bit different. The way he can shock guys, the way he can like shed blocks, but like you just haven't seen any consistency in his game through the first 2 years. And like even last year, you said it like during like spring practice and fall camp, it'd be like, oh, there's like a little bit of buzz, like, oh, he's made a play or two, but like it was kind of like you were grasping at that one practice or that one.
That's exactly how it was. It was like Jordan Hall had a great practice, and then 3 weeks go by and you don't hear his name mentioned. And that's
kind of so consistently this fall. Now I'm starting to think like, oh, they might have a guy that is not just again like a 5-star, really talented player who's just going to be what he is at this point. Like they might have a really dependable player. And frankly, if they can beat out Xavier McLeod, I think you'd feel really good about your interior twosome with Jordan Hall.
Dude, and then you pair that with the off-ball backers this football team has. Like that's another storyline. Why is it so important to have some dominance on the defensive line? The more dominant you are on the defensive line, the better helps your linebackers be playmakers. And that's the engine of this football team. You make no mistake about it. It's the most talented room that you see in the country. It ain't even close. The better this defensive line plays, the better the linebackers will play. That's the recipe. Like when you close your eyes and envision Georgia getting back to national championship form, that's to me where it starts. Now, a few other players that are making some noise, Gabe Harris, maybe taking that step, and then JJ Hahn. I think that's how you say his name. We covered this kid when he committed to Georgia last year. If you would have told me, like, all right, what true freshman do you think has the biggest impact on this football team in 2025? He probably would have been last place. Like the last player I would have thought would play meaningful snaps immediately in 2025. Well, Dill, it kind of sounds like he's that kind of difference maker. There is some monster upside with this kid. Just hasn't played that much football. Grew up across the pond, grew up not playing football. What if this kid emerges as a guy that you can trust? You're starting to see the depth emerge for this defensive line. But when you couple that with the difference makers that are emerging, like Jordan Hall, feeling pretty dang good about this defensive line heading into 2025.
And Gabe Harris is kind of the guy I look at needs
Sure.
to make it because he's too deep now. Like now you're a junior. Like last year's a sophomore. I just didn't see enough of like difference making plays.
Yeah,
Like
but
again,
it was, I mean, like, can I push back on? I mean, how are you going to get on the football field last year, man?
well, but
Like,
he was on the football field like enough to me to at least show a little bit more. And I know he was coming off
sure.
the injury, he's still playing with the brace on his leg, but like when you look, like you lose two really good players, like two legit first round players
Yes.
in Jalen Walker and Mike Hell. Gabe Harris was kind of the guy who's coming up, that 5-star guy who I feel like was supposed to be next in the pipeline and didn't show it in maybe the way that Mike Hell and Jalen Walker were earlier in their careers. So he's such a crucial one because I love the upside they have with guys like Quintavious Johnson and Joseph Jonah. Like those guys to me flash in a real meaningful way, like that length, that athleticism at their sizes. Those guys to me could be like real high end first round kind of picks if they pan out. Gabe Harris, though, I think they need to be dependable to give you like good solid snaps and be an all around defensive end in that scheme.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I guess the best way, and we spent more time on this than I expected to, but the best way to wrap up what we just talked about for the last 7 minutes, I feel like you got enough irons in the fire. Like it's a numbers game. I'm a numbers guy. Like you gotta, I'm kind of a numbers guy. Don't look at my math grades from high school. But the way I look at it is that there are enough guys you're hearing buzz around that I feel like at least some of them are going to take the step in 2025. And that's what we're looking for. Because again, outside of Kristen Miller, he's the only guy that I have a ton of confidence is going to be a difference maker right now as we sit. There's a lot of guys that have that potential in 2025. Dill, how about the back end? Here's a big storyline. Jonel Aguero, like taking that step, and Georgia has been freaking blessed with some star. Like the players that they've had play that star position have been some of the best players in the sport. Last year, they monkeyed around with Malachi Starks playing a decent amount at that position, just because it's one of the most important positions on the field, and Malachi Starks one of the best players in all of college football. Jonel Aguero was solid. Is probably the best I would put it from him in year two.
Wasn't good enough in coverage, and you had a guy in Malachi Starks who, again, like you had the versatility with him to pretty much play any of the safety spots and then kick down and be the best star on the team. So you could do a little mixing and matching. You just don't. I don't feel like you have that luxury because KJ Bolden, I don't think you want to take him out of the safety room because he's probably the most dependable safety, or not probably, he is the most dependable safety in that room. So you need Janelle to kind of be an all-down starter.
It sounds like that's what we're maybe getting, which I think's really, really big for Georgia. This kid, when he committed, he's like one of the first commitments we broke down for Georgia. And I looked at him as like, this kid was born to play the star. And maybe it didn't happen as much as we thought in year two. Well, it sounds like we're taking that step in year three. Dill, Alice Robinson generating some buzz going into year two, like kind of disappointing freshman year. I think we thought we'd see more of him. He's going to be a factor. And then I think they love Adrian Maddox. And Dill, that's just the definition of why I'm doing this in my basement and Kirby Smart's getting paid the big bucks. Because when he committed to Georgia, I was like, solid depth piece. I think it was after Zion Branch and it was after Jaden Harris. And I looked at it and I was like, I don't know why they take him. I don't know if he's going to be a factor for Georgia. Well, it sounds like he is. It sounds like Kirby Smart saw something I didn't. I ain't surprised to say that. And so that you're starting to see some different kind of bodies emerge, and he does his best work along in the front seven. Like when you knock this kid down in the box, spin him down there, he's a hammer. He likes to get involved in the run game. Intrigued about the role that Adrian Maddox plays as well. The offensive side of the football, there's two storylines that continue to fire me up, and neither of them have to do with Gunnar Stockton. Like that's the biggest problem with how the national media covers this football team is I feel like they're putting, I was going to say so much stock into Gunnar Stockton. They talk so much about Gunnar Stockton. Look, having your quarterback play good is important. And I think a lot of Georgia fans are like, we're going to get good quarterback play. To me, the bigger conversation is what's around the quarterback, right? It just wasn't good enough last year. I want to talk about the offensive line first, like Juan Gaston. And I said this the other day for Georgia, it kind of fires me up is, look, when you look at the starting five, is it as sexy as it was 12 months ago when you had Fairchild and Wilson and Tate? No, probably not. I feel like it's a deeper football team, and I feel like it's a healthier football team. And Dill, that was the problem with Georgia last year was not the talent. It's just where the guys were banged up. You were mixing and matching guys. This year, you have the depth to sustain a full SEC schedule. And Dill, Juan Gaston potentially emerging as a guy that can play for Georgia in 2025 intrigues me because you talk about running the football better. Big old Juan Gaston going to help you do that in 2025.
Because then you have legit 4 offensive guards that I think you feel good about. Because Daniel Calhoun, to me, feels like he's further along in his development than I would have thought maybe when he was coming out of high school, or he was like really big, but maybe a little bit sloppy in terms of the weight and the body composition. But they've got him kind of looking the right way. Juan Gaston, another guy who maybe came in like, well, is that the ideal body type right now to be a high level college football player? No, but it sounds like they've kind of got him in the range they're kind of looking for from a body standpoint. You knew the talent was there. So.
And he was a better athlete than Juan Gaston will play tackle for Georgia. I at least in my opinion, at some point he will play tackle. But when you're looking at your best five, look, Monroe, Freeland, Ernest Green, we're hearing all the right things. Like I think they've solidified themselves as your starting tackles. And then you're looking at Juan Gaston and saying, hey, we want to get the 5 best offensive linemen on the field. We think he can play tackle. Probably is going to be in the 2 deep as a tackle in 2025. But if we can get this kid on the football field at guard and he can just start moving some bodies and give us a run game to lean on, that to me is what excites me the most, is like this a little bit more of a bigger physical offensive line. Because I know Micah Morris going to move bodies. I know that. I'm excited about the offensive line. I know you have the running backs. Can this offensive line take a step because they're healthier and deeper? Last thing, though, wide receivers, they're going to be playmakers. Consistent Noah Thomas buzz. And it was funny because Noah Thomas didn't generate a ton of buzz in spring. It was all the freshman wide receivers. Noah Thomas going to be that guy. Zachariah Branch sounds like he's going to be that guy as well. We finally have guys on the outside that strike fear into opposing defenses. Like Zachariah Branch, you better hold your breath every time he has the football in space. You look at Noah Thomas, you better hold your breath every time there's a 50-50 ball along the sideline. Dill, you talk about helping the run game out. Like having wide receivers that make defensive coordinators afraid of what we can do vertically down the field, that going to help your run game as well. And go back to that Notre Dame playoff game where Notre Dame was so content playing single high safety man coverage across the board. Y'all can't beat us on the outside. We're going to put 7-man boxes in front of you, and y'all can't run it either. Like now that you have difference makers on the outside, we got to start respecting what y'all can do vertically down the field with 2 deep safeties. Maybe the run game gets a little bit better because of that as well. But these wide receivers, they need to hit on Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch. It sounds like they did.
And frankly, I look at Stockton and some of the balls he threw to the boundary in that Notre Dame game. I kind of like, I know Carson Beck was a middle of field guy. That's kind of where they wanted to use him.
Yes.
I feel like Stockton threw some really good deep balls to the boundary. You want good boundary receivers because in that Notre Dame game, it was painfully obvious he didn't really have it.
I couldn't agree more with that. I'll say this. There are more questions than we are used to having for Georgia. And that's what makes this fall camp like so exciting to follow, because we have a lot of questions. We know we have potential answers. What you're hearing during fall camp is we are starting to see some answers emerge. Like it a lot. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.